A critical Baltimore shipping channel is back to what officials are calling business as usual after a nearly $100 million cleanup of the collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge. For 78 days, there's been little to no traffic through one of the busiest ports on the East Coast because of the deadly bridge collapse. Crews have worked around the clock to clear 50,000 tons of fallen steel and concrete from the Patapsco River, the equivalent of 3,800 fully loaded dump trucks. Now, the key question for millions of people who use that bridge every year is, when will they start construction and when will it be done? Joining us now, Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg. It's good to see you, Mr. Secretary. Look, that's impressive stuff. Those statistics about how quickly things got moved and just the volume of it is pretty extraordinary. But you know how constituents are. What have you done for me lately? So the big unanswered questions people want to know is, when will construction start? When will it be done?
Yeah, so today's big news is one more step toward back to normal. It represents, in less than 100 days, getting those thousands, tens of thousands of tons of wreckage out of the harbor and having the port fully back to normal. From day one, President Biden made clear that this administration was going to do everything it took to help the people of Baltimore get back to normal. For our department, the DOT, there are really two sides of that. Getting the port back open and dealing with the consequences in the meantime. That's been addressed. And then it's getting the bridge back up and dealing with the consequences of that in the meantime. Now, the Francis Scott Key Bridge is not an ordinary bridge. This is the kind of scale that I sometimes call the cathedrals of our infrastructure. It marked the skyline of Baltimore for as long as it stood. It took about 5 years to build. I believe with our help, the Maryland DOT can meet or beat that timeline on the next one. But I should say, you know, they're not just dusting off the blueprints from the 70s and putting up the same bridge that they lost. They know that we should be designing and building bridges in the 2020s in a different way than what was common practice in the 70s. And so there is work that goes into that, making sure that it's the right design, making sure that it's going to last into the 2070s and beyond. And that's the process that's underway right now. We're supporting with everything we can, technical assistance, funding. We already got the first $60 million identified. That's really a down payment. They estimate $1.7 to $1.9 billion is what it's going to take. Money that will have a return in terms of that supply chain connection and just that connection for commuters across that critical route.
Building a new bridge better, which is what it sounds like you're determined and the folks who are behind this are determined to do, is one thing. The second question is, what about the ones that are still standing, who, as we know, there are so many of them throughout this country that have issues, structural problems? Is everything being looked at with fresh eyes now?
Yeah, there are thousands of bridges around the country that need work. Many of them have been closed or they have the load limited, which means they're still up and running, but you can't take a truck, a school bus, or importantly, an ambulance across that route, and you got to go on a longer route. This is one of the reasons why President Biden pushed so hard and we all worked so hard in the first year of this administration to get that infrastructure bill done. And part of what we're doing is building new bridges. Part of what we're doing is shoring up some of the bridges we have against the different threats they face, whether it's the Golden Gate Bridge, which is being shored up to make it more resilient to the next earthquake, or questions about how to make sure that bridges are more resilient and resistant to the extremely rare but extremely serious threat of a ship strike. Now, we're still looking to see some of the investigation and assessment that'll tell us more about this particular circumstance, whether any bridge could have withstood a direct impact from a ship of this size. We're talking about something like 250 million pounds, a level of force that's comparable to what you see in a rocket launch. But more recent bridge designs do have what are called dolphins or fenders or islands around their key support structures. And I expect that's going to be part of the criteria and the conversations for repairing and replacing bridges for the balance of this 21st century, based partly on what we experienced here in Baltimore earlier this year.
Back in the days after the catastrophic collapse of the bridge, you and I spoke, and a lot of our conversation then focused on supply chain issues. And I know that there was a lot of Creative thinking, resilience with a lot of companies to make sure that they were mitigated to the extent that they could be. But when you say things are fully back to normal, I assume you're talking about the channel operationally. What about everything else that goes along with it and supply chain issues? How close are things to being back to normal?
So I would say our supply chains showed a lot of resilience in terms of the ability of other ports up and down the East Coast to absorb some of the traffic that was diverted there because Baltimore was unavailable. And by the way, that wasn't just a ports issue. That complicated things for our railroads, our trucking networks. And throughout this process, we've been sitting down, having conversations and engagements with shippers, with cargo owners, with truckers, with railroads, and of course with the ports to work through that and talk through that. And those conversations continue. We do see things returning increasingly to normal here. It's difficult for me to describe, TM. I'm speaking to you from the grounds of the port. If you're here, you see just a number of pieces of heavy equipment, tractors, loaders. Some of the specialty of this port is getting those kinds of exports ready. And something I can tell you, my soon-to-be 3-year-old son, who is obsessed with excavators, he'd just be going nuts out here. But it's important to understand just how specialized that is. Containers is one thing, but there's really no place in the country that can handle vehicles and heavy equipment quite like Baltimore. So it has been a disruption, but most of all, it's been a disruption for the workers here. And I'm looking forward to spending some time later this afternoon with the longshore workers. They've been through so much. They already went through so much with COVID. Then they were dealt this blow, and having them back to normal, having them back to work, and having the financial security that comes with that is really one of the key reasons why we all considered it important to act quickly here. It's why Governor Moore was very focused on getting them back to normal. It's why I'm really just in awe of the work that was done by the Unified Command of the Coast Guard, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the 56 different federal, state, and local agencies that played a role in getting us to today, where we mark the full reopening of port operations.
Well, without a doubt, a lot of people who worked a lot of overtime to make sure that it's gotten to this point so quickly. And not bad when you have a son who thinks that you've got a cool job either. And maybe one day he'll take it from you. Who knows? Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, thank you. Much appreciated.